All right. I would like to call to order the Tuesday, January 18th, 2022 meeting of the Winona City Council. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Clerk? Here. Alder Thomas?
Here.
Alder Goforth?
Here.
Alder Dubuque?
Here.
Alder Moore?
Here.
Mayor O'Connor?
Here. And Alder Wood is excused. Is there a motion, or I'm sorry, all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the January 3rd meeting?
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Anybody have any additions or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
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 Opposed? Minutes are approved. In terms of appearances, Brian, is Sally?
I do not see her in the waiting room. Can you hear my audio?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I do not see her in the waiting room at this moment.
Okay, we don't have any appearances. We've received emails from several people in support of Resolution 22-1-2529, repudiating racist covenants and local property records. We've received those from, they're all in favor of the resolution: Jesse Claringbowl, Christina Jones, Beth Esser, Katie Kaufman, Sue Carr, and Patricia Etheridge, all from Winona. Then we also received an email in support of Resolution 22-1-2534, extending the ad hoc work group on diversity and equity issues, and that was from Katie Kaufman of Winona, also in support. There is no public hearing. There is no consent agenda. Moving on to unfinished business. Item 1A, consideration of Ordinance 1-22-746, amending Section 335-8 of the Code of Ordinances, prohibiting noise disturbing the peace, put forth by the Public Safety Committee. Alder Corr.
I'd like to move to table this item because Alder Wood is not able to join us, and I would prefer that he was able to be part of the discussion. I think he brings something to the table that would be missing.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Okay.
You can give it to Alder Thomas. Administrator Gatto has a remark.
Yep.
Sorry, just a point of information.
Right.
The correct motion should be a motion to continue to the next available city council meeting. Table just, not to get into parliamentary procedures, when you table it for later in the meeting. When you want to move it to a different meeting, you continue it to a future meeting.
Then I move to continue.
Okay. All in favor of continuing, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Item 1B, consideration of Resolution 22-1-2529, repudiating racist covenants and local property records, put forth by Alder Corr and myself. You should have received the revised resolution in an email from Brian this morning. So is there a motion to approve this?
I'll move approval.
I'll second. Discussion?
I just wanted to bring up, so this was taken to the ad hoc committee the Thursday following our last council meeting, and they brought forth some great points and raised some concerns about some of the language, and so that was reflected in the new version that was received.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments or questions? Alder Moore?
I just wanted to say that I'm sorry that we can't do more and that the state statute prevents us from doing more as it relates to individual leaves, but I think this is an important step forward, and I thank Alder Kerr and the mayor for bringing it forward, and for the ad hoc committee for looking at it as well.
Anyone else? Alder Goforth and then Alder Corr.
Yeah, I want to reiterate what Alder Moore just stated. I'm appreciative of this coming forward. I just wanted to add that the DEI committee is I think we've been looking at this and talking about this since I think it was our second meeting. So we've been on this for a little while, and we appreciate you kind of getting the ball rolling. It will maybe be something in our recommendations. Yeah. But I also appreciate the amendment removing the word Caucasian from the document.
Thank you. Alder Coor, did you have something?
I just wanted to mention that, in particular, Mary Ann Reed did a lot of legwork on this in terms of contacting the Register of Deeds and looking to see if there was actually some legislation in the pending in the State House. And unfortunately, there's nothing that's visible at this point. I know that the Realtors Association has really talked this up. But we haven't seen any movement in the State House in terms of being able to change things on the state level to allow a much easier process that would be essentially maybe one form, and it would be free to make this change to your property deed. The state of Minnesota has that available. We just haven't been able to do that here yet. And I understand that the Register of Deeds in Dane County is also looking to do make it easier to search whether you have this in your property deed or not, but they're working on the database. It's not ready yet.
Okay, thank you. Alder Thomas.
I would suggest if somebody doesn't have plans to do so, that we put information on how to achieve this in the newsletter, the next newsletter that goes out, so people can be aware of it. I mean, it's one thing for us to do this, but there are a lot of people who won't see or notice this. So we ought to put it up, post it up, and put it on the newsletter so people know how to go about doing, that they can do this and that they need to do it.
Okay, that's a good idea, and we're actually working on that right now. We're just putting it together. So, Brian, you think we could get something to him this time to have him, because it comes out either late tomorrow or early Thursday?
Yeah, I can work with Will to get something in the newsletter that's going out this week.
Okay, and maybe we could put something on the city website too, and then I could refer to that in my next lowdown, which I'll be recording later this week. If we could do that, maybe just the same wording that you use for the newsletter for the most part. So. Okay, anything else? Alder Moore.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm just wondering if we might expand that, obviously, to all of our channels and not just the newsletter, since I'm sure that I know that the newsletters become popular, but it certainly doesn't reach all of Winona. And so in addition to the website and the newsletter, I'm wondering, if we might even do some PSAs on WDMO, and if we might make sure that we get something in the Herald, and that maybe even do mailing to local realtors or something like that, so that we can really get the word out more, applying all of our media channels that are available to us.
Sure. We'll check into that. Anything else? Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to item 1C, consideration of resolution 22-1-2530, amending the 2022 capital budget amendment for the purchase of a mower in the Parks Department, put forth by the Parks and Recreation Board. Is there a motion to approve this?
Move approval.
I'll second.
Is Jake here? Are you going to speak from Brian?
Jake's here, and just a point of information, just based upon the council's last discussion, I modified the resolution that was in your packet to add an additional whereas clause. Again, as part of our discussion last time, we talked about the idea of pushing back the Fireman's Park project. That was approximately $15,000, pushing that item back to 23, and then applying part of that money to this project and then the next agenda item. So both those resolutions have been amended to add those whereas clauses.
Okay. Jake, did you want to add anything to what you said last week?
No, nothing else at this time, Mayor.
Does anyone have any questions, comments? Alder Groupie?
I just want to comment. I believe this was mentioned at the last meeting, so I don't want to, get too in the weeds or beat a dead horse. But I really appreciate the Parks Department looking to reappropriate funds and, really try to do their best to balance in making this new request. And also just to reiterate that a lot of the reason behind the amendment to the budget is just that we were unable to secure grant funding for certain things, and there's just a lot of issues with supply chain management and access right now. So I just want to thank Jake for, kind of moving things around and doing the best that he could to look into things and make this a little bit more feasible for the council to approve.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, if there are no further questions, will the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Clark? Alder Thomas?
Aye.
Alder Goforth?
Aye.
Alder Goopy?
Aye.
Alder Moore?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, item D, consideration of Resolution 22-1-2531, amending the 2022 capital budget for parks, tree removals, and replacements, also put forth by the Parks and Recreation Board. Is there a motion to approve this?
Move
So
approval.
moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Jake, did you have anything to add about this one? This is the one where we didn't get the grant money we had hoped for. So if there are no other questions, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Moore?
Aye.
Alder Kerr?
Aye.
Alder Thomas?
Aye.
Alder Goforth?
Aye.
Alder Goopy?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next, item 1E, consideration of Resolution 22-1-2532, allocation of American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funds for police and fire departments, policy updates. Put
Move
forth by the
approval.
City Administrator, Fire Chief McMullen, and Police Chief Cheney Austin. Is there a move to approve
Move
this?
approval.
Second.
Chief, did you have anything further to add?
Yes,
Or
Madam.
Brian?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Just to point out for the council, again, based upon discussion at the last meeting, you just wanted to get numbers on what would be the cost if they did the 5-year option rather than the 2-year option that was originally in the memo. So I've updated the memo to add that information in there. The 2-year option is a total cost of $89,733.56. If you were to opt for the 5-year option, that cost would be $144,622.03. So just for point of comparison based upon the last meeting.
Alder Thomas.
Brian, in your professional opinion, are we better to stick with the 2-year than the 5-year for financial reasons?
Again, it kind of goes both ways. I mean, I think there is some value in locking in that price long term, and that was kind of the gist of some of the discussion at the last meeting. If you did do the 5-year plan, so that 144,000, with the other items that we've expended ARPA money on, that would leave us with about $208,540 for the remainder of this first batch of money. So if you remember, we get our approximately $850,000 of ARPA money in 2 different batches. First batch we have in hand, which is $427,000 and change. We get the second batch in July of this year. So I think all things said and done, you still have about $640,000 and change remaining in ARPA money that you can still expend. So, if the council's will is to lock in this price, I think there's flexibility to do that.
Okay. Given the fact that it's pretty clear that we're going to continue to do this, and if we do this, if we use these funds, then we won't have to levy for it, I would amend to make it 5-year.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion on that? Alder Moore?
Well, I just have a question about the leap in price, which is, I mean, I certainly appreciate that locking into 5 years would be more expensive, but I don't know, to me it seems once we get the first major overhaul done, and I would certainly be interested to hear the chief's opinion of this. Is I don't know. It just seems to me that the updates. It's hard for me to imagine that the updates would be massive every year after that, so it just seems like kind of a big jump. Maybe I'm the only person that feels that way, but it just seems like, and I'd be curious to it's hard for me to imagine. I mean, it's definitely, I know how much work it would be to get it at first in order, given where we are right now. But it's kind of like, if you're renovating a house, once you do the major renovation, what other kinds of improvements,
Chief, do you want to address that?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. At least from the implementation side, I very much think that that's going to be worth every penny. I understand where you're coming from, Alder Moore, because I asked the same question about the costs associated with the sort of the policy subscription, the annual policy subscription. I do believe, after sort of asking around and for other agencies who utilize this program, that it's worth its value. And what I mean by that is specifically with law enforcement, there is constant change with respect to case law, with respect to things that are happening on a national level, things are happening regionally based on the Federal Court of Appeals, and things that are happening locally that we need to stay up on, and our policies need to reflect that. And it protects us. Not only does it make us be better agencies, better law enforcement, better law enforcement agencies for our community, it also, frankly, protects the city from civil liability as well. And there are so many changes that happen in a year. Since in my short time here, 6 months, there have been dozens of changes, and this program sort of keeps tabs on that. Make sure that we implement it sort of in the Winona way while applying all of the requirements based on new or case law. This also includes a training element, which I think is very important as well, so that we can offer this in a sort of a testing format to all of our staff. There's tracking mechanisms that we're able to implement as well. I do think there's benefit, but I agree with you. There was somewhat of a shock when it came to looking at the number that it costs. But in asking around, as I said, everyone I've spoken to said that it's well worth the value.
Great. Appreciate it, Chief. I appreciate that additional explanation.
Alder Thomas?
Yeah, a couple of thoughts. First of all, I would suggest that it only takes one incident, and I think we owe it to our safety officers, our police and fire department, our community, and I look at it not only as this keeping our policy up to date, but it's like buying insurance, because if you don't do this and you have an incident, the cost of legal fees and other things are much greater, let alone what it might do to officers as a community if we're not up to date on something. So I think that it is a really wise move to keep our safety units, to give them all the information and protection they can use to serve us well.
Alder Groupie, and then Alder Kerr.
I want to go to something that the chief said, which I really am kind of latching onto by seconding Alder Thomas's motion to extend this for the full 5-year contract, or for the full 5 years of life. The idea that policy would continue to change and evolve and be better for our community and our force over this period of time is something that I hope for. I hope that we don't run out of things to look for as far as ways to improve, ways to better our department and our officers and our public safety staff as a whole. I think about how much has changed, not only in our chiefs, a police chief's time on the force, but also all of the changes and opportunities that have arisen with Chief McMullen in just the very short time that he's been here. And it's almost mind-blowing. I mean, the number of things that he's brought to the table as far as changes, recommendations, opportunities. So I'm looking at this as a way to ensure that we do continue to evolve and we have the support to do so. because I would feel regretful if we got through 2 years or 3 years, or is it the two? And we were like, that's good. We're done. So that's how I'm choosing to approach this, and I appreciate everyone's input on the topic.
Alder Cooper?
At the last meeting, I brought up a similar concern as Alder Moore about, do we really need to do this as in-depth in years 3 through 5? But because we're using ARPA funds and they're funds we have now, and most likely if we had to do this in the future, those would be operating funds, which are always tight. The ability for us to pay for this now with funds that aren't committed to something else, it would allow us some flexibility down the road. And because we don't have other projects pending right now at this moment that we would use the ARPA funds for, I guess I would prefer to just take care of this. We're done for 5 years, and we can worry about subsequent projects or needs in the operating budget in future years.
Alder Moore?
Yeah, I want to clarify, because it doesn't appear that it was clear, that I was not at all questioning the 5-year commitments. I'm saying that the chief shake his head was not, in fact, I think I might have brought up the 5-year commitment at the last meeting. I was only questioning the price. So I fully support the 5-year commitment.
Okay, anyone else? All right, if there are no other comments, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Goofy,
Aye.
Alder Moore,
Aye.
Alder Kerr,
Aye.
Alder Thomas,
Aye.
Alder Goforth. Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to new business,
Sorry,
I'm
Madam
going to move item
Madam Mayor?
D.
Sorry, then,
Yes?
that was to adopt the motion offered by Alders Thomas and.
Oh, I'm
Goofy.
sorry,
So
we have to,
adopt the motion
vote on
as,
the motion.
the resolution as it's been amended.
okay, we're back to the original motion as amended. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Goofy,
Aye.
Alder Moore,
Aye.
Alder Kerr,
Aye.
Alder Thomas,
Aye.
Alder Goforth.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, now, moving on to new business, I'm going to move item 2D up to the top of the list as Jeff Belongia is patiently waiting to explain this borrowing package. So item 2D, and this is started for immediate approval, consideration of resolution 22-1-2537, authorizing the issuance and sale of $11 million, and it should be $180,000 in taxable tax increment revenue bonds related to TID number 9, series 2022A, put forth by the finance director. Is there a motion to take this out of order?
So move.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
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 Make sure the amount is changed to 180.
And is there a motion to approve?
Move approval in the amount of $11,180,000.
Second?
Okay. Mark, were you going to address this first, or is Jeff, whatever you would like to do?
Sure, I'll just give a brief summary. So we had,
And I'm just, excuse me, I'm sorry. We sent out a new, several documents related to this in your email that you got late this afternoon. I'm not sure if everyone had seen that or not, but reflecting
Yeah.
the changes in the number.
so they went, when they went out for bids today, talking to the bondholders, our bond counsel, Quarles and Briggs, we sent a resolution based on their activity today. So that's what they sent the email forwarding that on. So basically, these are TIF 9 bands. Basically, they're used to buy the land that was turned into the riverfront development, current and everything there. And also, there's new money of $2 million for the current developers agreement, basically for the parking garage structure we have now on this last phase. So we're changing from general obligation to TIF increment revenue bonds. What this does is currently it would be part of your GO notes, which is subject to the state limit, 5% of the equalized value. These no longer will be part of that. These will be TIF increment loans, so will be subject just to that TIF only. So it's broken out that way. So they're a little bit more trickier than a general obligation note because they're supported just only by TIF revenue, TIF increments, and not supported as a whole. For general obligation, you have the backing of your property taxes. This you do not. You have the backing of your TIF increments. So there's a little bit of difference in that. So saying that, I'll leave it to Jeff to kind of explain it. Go over the borrowing from today.
Jeff, are you able to unmute yourself?
Jeff, take you off mute. Jeff, take yourself off mute. Not sure what's going on here.
Did he know we were going to move him up in the agenda, Mark? Or did you
Yeah,
tell
he
him?
knew the word. Yeah.
Okay. He did have trouble getting on earlier, didn't he?
Can somebody text him?
I just did.
Okay.
Well, Brian, should we wait a minute, or do you want to move on to something else and come back to this?
Yeah, we can move on to one more item. If worst case, I'll have him come back in to the meeting if he can't get off mute.
Okay. Well, why don't we move up to 2A then, consideration of resolution 22-1-2534, extending the ad hoc work group on diversity and equity issues put forth by the ad hoc work group, and this is also started for immediate approval. So is there a motion?
Move to suspend the rules and take this item out of order.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, Brian, did you want to
Yeah, thank you.
address this?
You want a motion to approve?
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
I'll second.
Thank
Brian?
you. So as you're all aware, this spring we created the ad hoc work group on diversity and equity issues. They've been meeting since the end of July, having very good and robust discussions about a lot of the charge that the council originally gave them. Right now, they're in the process of kind of setting out the framework for their final report to the city council that would include recommendations. Because of just the breadth of topics that we've been talking about for the last couple of months. They're asking for a little additional time to complete that report and get it to the city council. So the request from the committee is to add 3 months to the timeline, which would end at the end of this month. So add 3 months to that to get us to April of 2022, at which time we would provide a report back to the council.
Any questions? Elder Groupie?
Hello. Hello,
I,
everyone.
Hi, Jeff.
Hey.
Could you just hang on a minute?
Yeah,
We
give
moved
us 1
on to
second,
something else, but it shouldn't take very long.
No problem, Mayor. I heard everything you said. I've been on the meeting since the beginning, and it said someone has put me on mute, so I couldn't unmute it from my side.
Okay. Well, we will be back with you in
Sorry.
just a moment.
Yeah, thank you.
Alder Groupie?
I understand the reasons for this extension, and I fully support it, is to, provide more time to prepare the report and make recommendations for long-term solutions and opportunities for our community. But I'm wondering if there will be a point at which we could just sort of have for those on the council specifically unable to attend some of these meetings, I'd love to just hear more about what's being discussed. Like, for example, I brought up something after hearing it on the radio about the covenants and then found out that there was all this discussion already happening about that. And so if it's possible for just like a brief summary of topics of discussion, I would just be very personally enthusiastic to find out more about, what's in the works and what potentially is yet to come. So no rush on that, just a remark and a comment. I'm appreciative of the work the committee has done.
Anyone else? Okay, if there's nothing else, Alder, go for it.
Right. I just wanted to mention that, our first few meetings were spent just kind of, brainstorming on a whiteboard, talking about things that were important to us personally and important to, we felt, groups of color, and we really spent some time identifying groups that we would possibly reach out to get information. We spent a lot of time talking about conflict and how different cultural groups address conflict differently. That was a really fascinating conversation and something really cool. I don't think these meetings have been recorded, but that would be a great one to watch if it was. We were in person at that time, so I don't believe it was recorded. But yeah, so it's just been it's been a little bit of like pinball all over the place, but now it's kind of starting to synthesize and come together as we kind of have prioritized what some of these, the things that have been most important. I think some of those are going to be things like making sure people in the community have more exposure to cultural events, like the Momentum Urban Arts Festival, for instance. That was a really different kind of event for this community, and making sure when we host events, we're not just always hosting them at one location that's, in an area of maybe more affluence. So yeah, there's been a lot of different things, and it's I wish I could just tell you, we really just have focused on events and food and arts, but it's been all across the board. So, but I think that's a great question, and I hope someone can synthesize it down into a better way than I can.
Yeah, Brian and I will talk about that. Brian maybe could provide a little further information at some point, or we could see if Jason wanted to come and talk about it. Jason Chung, who's been sharing it.
Yeah, I'll invite Jason to see if he can attend one of our next council meetings to give an update.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Alder, go for it.
I noticed 2 typos on the resolution, and I just wanted to point them out. One is on the whereas with the 4 bullets. It says, whereas the city council provide the ad hoc, just to be provided. And then the other one is the first whereas on the second page. It says due to the complex nature and breadth, and it should be breadth. Tiny
Okay.
details.
We will update that. Anyone else? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, now we will go back to item 2D, authorizing the issuance and sale of the bonds. So, and we already have a motion on the floor. So Jeff, if you'd like to give a little
Yes,
further
thank you, Mayor.
information about this?
Mark did an excellent job with that segue into this. Basically, I would just reiterate, put numbers to it. When we do our general obligation borrowing, we're committing the ability of a $1.5+ billion entity to levy a tax to pay our debt. This is a little different. We're an entity of TID number 9, which is currently around 29 million. So a huge difference when you look at the actual credit that's being offered. However, be that as it may, that entity is administered by a fine AA+ city of Winona. So we have 20-year bonds for you tonight that are revenue bonds. The only pledge is the revenue of TID number 9, which Mark has delineated. And we have the first 10 years that have been offered at a 4.05, and the last years 11 through 20 at a 4.88%. Keep in mind those are taxable. They should look a bit different than what you've seen in the past. But even our normal general obligation debt from last year is probably going to be 1.25% higher this year, just due to changes in the economy. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. This is exactly the direction we were given from the council to, in fact, segregate this from our 5% borrowing capacity. Because, of course, you have other projects to entertain in the near future, one being a facilities program that you're working on.
Any questions? Alder Thomas.
You're muted, Kathy.
And Jeff, you can confirm what I'm about to say, but it's interesting to note that the revenues from the TIF district are 150% of what our financial obligations are. So that is a very healthy TIF district and is likely to be refinanced or paid off sooner than the 20 years. Is that a fair way of stating that, Jeff?
Perfectly said, Kathy. I couldn't say it better. You're absolutely correct.
Anyone else? Alder, go for it.
I was just wondering, these are callable bonds?
Yeah, the last 10 years are callable.
Okay, the last
So
10.
what will happen is, as Kathy just said, as we build up additional revenues over and above our debt service payment, we will probably do a series of calls on the longer bonds, years 41. We'll start with the last year because it's the most expensive. So as we develop and generate more monies into that TID fund, we will utilize them. We won't wait the full time. We'll actually be defeasing some debt ahead of time. So
Great.
it's kind of a worst case scenario. Good question.
Okay, great. And I was wondering, are we consulting a municipal bond attorney on this? This seems like a slightly unique situation. I've not seen this one before.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. We couldn't issue any debt without a legal opinion that's recognized throughout the United States. Quarles and Brady has been, and Quarles and Brady probably renders 90 to 95% of the legal opinions on municipal debt issued in the state of Wisconsin. And they've been our bond counsel for some time. So yes, this comes with a full legal opinion, and we couldn't even get a buyer to look at it without a recognized opinion. So affirmative to your question.
Excellent. You
And all
probably
of
know my father-in-law. You probably knew my father-in-law, who was a partner at Quarles and Brady, and he's like he was one of the renowned municipal bond attorneys in the state of Wisconsin and in the country. Paul Schilling, you probably knew him, Jeff.
Oh, no, listen. Paul Schilling and I, you're making my heart.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yeah, he's an amazing person.
Paul and I were really close.
Really?
Close.
Yeah.
For a lot of
Amazing
reasons,
individual.
we shared outdoor interests together, but
Yeah.
thank you. I love Paul Schilling.
Yeah. He was an amazing guy.
And Jeff, we have legal opinions on all of our borrowings, correct? We always have it reviewed.
Yes, Mayor, you have. And Brian Lanzer's been the lead attorney. And I would say Paul Schilling probably hired Brian Lanzer out of the university at, that fancy one out east in Boston, Harvard. But Paul, for those of you in the council who don't know, Paul was on the Board of Regents, University of Wisconsin. Paul was a brilliant young attorney from Crandon, Wisconsin. And by the way, I'm going to Crandon on Thursday to work with them again. So anyway.
Yeah, he was the president of Board of Regents for about, 10, 15 years.
But just a super guy.
Yeah.
Okay, are there any other questions? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Goforth.
Aye.
Alder Groupie.
Aye.
Alder Moore.
I think you're muted, Nancy.
Lori, aye.
Alder Kirk.
Aye.
Alder Thomas.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, and thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
All right, moving on
Good
to item 2B, consideration of resolution 22-1-2535, approval of participation in a Wisconsin Bureau of Transportation Safety Grant, the 2022 Capital Area OWI Task Force, and this is put forth by the police chief. Is there a motion to take this out of order?
Move to suspend the rules and take this item out of order.
Second.
Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Chief?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I think many of you are familiar with these grants. This is the second time in which I've spoken on similar grants as received through the Wisconsin Bureau of Transportation Safety. This one in front of you right now is OWI grants. I think, hopefully many of you saw some of the great work and evidence that our staff has been doing to combat drunk driving. We did a recent social media post with respect to some of the traffic arrests that were made for some pretty egregious violations of drunk driving, as well as some very high speeds and deadly speeds, include 105 miles an hour. These are all things that are occurring in our city and things that I, as chief, am responsible for trying to address to make sure that all of us can travel from A to B safely. And so this grant is issued by the state, in which we are the administrators of, supports additional enforcement in that realm of OWI, and we are partners with a few other surrounding agencies in that endeavor.
Any questions? I think these are similar, we've had similar grants every year that come for our approval. So no questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passes. Next item 2C, consideration of resolution 22-1-2536, approval of participation in the Wisconsin Bureau of Transportation Safety Grant. This relates to the 2022 Dane Suburban Seatbelt Task Force, also put forth by the police chief. Is there a motion to take this out of
Move
order?
to suspend the rules and take this item out of order.
Second.
Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Or Chief, would you like to address this one?
Yes, just briefly, and just to reiterate a point I made the last time coming before council on a similar grant, and looking at an email in which I issued a directive to our all of our officers on June 9th. Mind you, I was sworn in on June 1st, so it's probably the first order they heard from the new person. But that is that all traffic grant enforcement, regardless of the traffic grant, needs to focus on hazardous driving behavior. I listed out a series of what example, a list of examples of what constitutes hazardous driving behavior. So bear with me, I'm just going to go over a few. OWI, speeding, reckless driving, racing, failure to yield, following too close, deviating from lane, no headlights, because obviously at night that could be dangerous, driving against traffic, failure to have control, failure to signal turn, and I list several others. The reason I'm bringing this up is because I think it's important when we look at our participation in grant work, particularly seatbelt grant work. State law allows police officers to conduct primary stops for seatbelt violations. I still think that it's beneficial for us to focus on those violations. We are an active participant in seatbelt enforcement. However, I think that the focus should be on the hazardous driving behavior. What is drawing that person's attention to you based on how they're operating the vehicle in an unsafe manner that can cause death or great bodily harm or any injury to themselves or others that are operating in our roadways. And so my directive still stands. Officers will be focusing on hazardous driving behavior as the primary focus of stop. However, because of our participation in this grant and because the fact that persons who do not wear seatbelts and are involved in crashes often will result in injury or death, we will address seatbelt violations the secondary nature in our traffic stops. I'll give you a great example. I'm on the belt line monitoring for speed. In the middle of the night, I use my laser device. Its speed shows 70 miles an hour. I stop that vehicle. I make contact with the driver. The driver was not wearing their seatbelt, admits not wearing their seatbelt. I address the driving behavior, knowing Winona officers likely giving a break of some sort on the ticket, reducing the speed limit, infraction on the citation, or making some other amendments to the actual violation, and then thereby issuing the seatbelt violation or addressing it somehow via warning or citation. So that's my point, and that's something that I've reiterated since my first few days in my post, and something that continues to this day. So thank you for your time.
Questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Next, our final item, 2E, consideration of Ordinance 1-22-747, updating the fees, fines, and penalties schedule put forth by the Administrative Services Director. Leah?
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. This is the annual update of our fees, fines, and penalty schedule. This year, there are only 2 sections that have updates. One is in the planning and zoning section, and I think Doug is on the call if you have any questions about what he's doing there. And then the second section that has fee changes is in Parks and Recreation. Those fees were all accounted for in the budget and all approved by the Park and Rec Board with a recommendation for the budget.
Anyone have any questions for Doug or Leah? Kathy? I think you're on mute.
And is there a need to take this out of order so people are covered? Are they currently covered? Or did it expire January 1 and do we need to act on it tonight?
No, the current prices as they were at the end of the year would still carry over until a new fee schedule is adopted.
Okay, so we're okay to wait?
If you wanted to, or if you wanted, if the council was comfortable to adopt it tonight, you're by all means go ahead and do that.
Then they would go into effect earlier, right?
I just move to suspend the rules and take this out of order.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Is there a motion to
Move
approve?
approval.
Second.
Any further questions or discussion? Alder Coor and then Alder Goforth.
I think we had brought this up maybe the last meeting, maybe it was the one prior, during our DEI discussion item. I'm hoping that we can review our codes and then, I don't know if there's anything in the fee schedule. I didn't see anything when I glanced through it, but I want to make sure that we're addressing gender neutral language as opposed to gender specific language. So that could just be noted to be updated when the fee schedule is updated.
Okay. Alder Goforth, did you have something?
Yeah, I was just curious. I wasn't privy to the conversation about the fees, but I'm looking at the resident and non-resident pricing. And like, for instance, the exclusive use of park fee resident at $1,000, non-resident at $1,075. I was curious, oftentimes you see that pricing where the non-resident is much higher than the resident. I'm just curious about how that, how it came about that it was, such a small amount of an increase for non-residents.
Molly, could you maybe address that? Since Doug isn't here and Jake isn't either.
To be perfectly honest, my brain is mush and I don't remember having the conversation about the fees. It could have been, I wish that Jake was here to clarify, it could have been, it wasn't at our most recent meeting. It could have been a while back that we talked about this. The only thing I can think of is that we have talked in the past about, and I won't get on too much of a tangent just in case this is completely incorrect. But one of the things we've talked about in the past is, so many community members come to Winona, many of whom come from, community centers, neighborhood groups, Boys and Girls Club kind of thing. And I think we're trying to make sure that we are accommodating to different types of groups who have different financial, different ability to pay and access. So I know we've had that conversation in the past. I'm not 100% certain that that's what relates to this, but that's a good question. I think we should make sure we get Jake looped in on for clarification. And sorry.
I noticed it was the same difference prior to this as well. It was a $75 difference. They just raised it.
Yes, it was like, so with that, like maybe it could be 150 more. So it's a pretty significant increase.
Yeah.
I'll ask. I'll write him about it. I'll ask.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Alder Thomas.
Is not included in the budget when we did them. Did we not approve them?
Yes.
The numbers, did we didn't actually approve the change, did we? Well, I guess we did, yeah.
We did. The only thing we didn't do is change the schedule.
Right.
We reviewed the numbers and approved them when we accepted the park budget. And if we don't use these numbers or approve them, then we're going to have to go back and do a budget revision, most likely, I think.
Although in this case, it sounds like it will be
Yeah, only if the numbers
yeah.
were to go down from what was previously shown on the sheet.
Yeah. But that is a good point. The budget was based on these new revised numbers, so. Anyone else? Okay, then all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to reports of committees and commissions. Any updates, discussion on diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts? Mr. Gatto.
Sorry, just one quick thing. For those of you that are going to be participating in the Nehemiah course this winter, spring, you should have received the registration material. I hope that everyone is registered that's going to be taking it. If you have had issues with it, let me know, because I have to finalize that by the 21st. So let me know if there's any issues.
Alder Groupie, did you have something to?
Yeah. In my other job, my other life, I am working with a Region 6 equity group with WEAC to do some curriculum planning development, just to be more on top of inclusivity and appropriate teaching in the classroom for all ages and stages. And I just wanted to kind of solicit input for parents or others in the community that may have suggestions about things that they would like to see in updated curricula for students of all ages. The planning meeting is on the 29th. So just looking for feedback from parents if they have any questions. Obviously, the things that I recommend will be for my early childhood population, which is a little bit different. But we're hoping to just sort of make recommendations across Region 6 school districts about how to be more equitable, inclusive, and just have a greater breadth of knowledge and application of history and culture in our lesson planning. So,
Anyone else have anything? No? Then moving on, any update or discussion on sustainability efforts? Okay. Committee reports, Alder Kuhr.
Library board's meeting tonight. No other reports.
Alder Goforth.
Yeah, I think all of my committee meetings were canceled other than Plan Commission. So no report really.
Alder Moore.
The Plan Commission meeting is not canceled on Monday, the 24th. Our agenda will include a review of the latest iteration of the Bloom, which is the development that the Neutral Project is putting forward for the corner of Winona Drive and Dean. So that's happening on the 24th, as well as the review of a retail car establishment that's been brought forth for approval at on Femrite Drive, where the old Treasure Mart used to be. Unfortunately, the therapeutic dog business that was to be there never happened. And so we have a proposal for that in front of us, as well as the changing of zoning at 112-208 Owen Road, that being the post office, malls, and bowling alley, the change in zoning from retail to a community design district. So those will all be on the agenda on Monday, the 24th.
Alder Groupie.
Parks Board will meet next Tuesday, the 25th, in a reschedule of our original meeting that was supposed to be last Tuesday. And we hope to finalize a couple of things, most specifically on the parks open and space planning. I believe a draft is available and survey results available on the parks website. If anyone wants to provide feedback in advance, I think we should have a public listening session also coming up. But that's what we're going to talk about.
Alder Thomas.
Yeah, I don't have a city report, but just in case you missed it today, you can go to the U.S. Postal Service website and sign up to get 4 free COVID tests mailed to you. So we should let people know that, because I'm not sure who knows about it, but they're very easy to get. You give them your address and they're going to mail them out at the end of the month.
Let's see, the city clerk, do you have anything?
Sorry. There is no spring primary, so the next election will be in April. I think that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Chief Cheney Austin.
Thank you, Council. I have a wonderful guest. And, well, she's not really visiting because she's technically working right now, but it's Emma, our newest dispatcher. She goes by Sal, which makes life easier for all of us with 2 Emmas, but she's cool with Sal, so she's Sal. Emma's training right now with one of our veteran experienced dispatchers, and she's agreed to join me for a quick introduction. So, anything? Anything, Sal?
Hi, it's nice to meet everyone.
All right. Well, hopefully you come and see her. If you stop in, check your mail, and she's here, please feel free to say hi. And I just wanted to thank the council for all of your support, the public for all your support. This Lexipol, and speaking for Jerry too, he and I have been texting with excitement tonight, by the way. The implementation of Lexipol will really go a long way for public safety in our community, and so we are super thrilled. Please, continue to support. I encourage you, our frontline staff that includes more than just police and fire. We're seeing it every day, what they're risking. I know many of you know and appreciate that. So thank you for that. I don't have kids. I joke that I'm allergic to children. I'm not, but I only wonder how many of you and many of our staff here manage the school cancellations, the childcare cancellations, all of the above, and most of your frontline staff are still having to show up to work every day, despite all of that. So thank you all for continued support, and someday soon we'll get through this COVID experience that we're all living through. I brag about this place every day. One of the many prime examples of why I brag, but it is a great place to be, great place to work, and you have very, very dedicated dispatchers and police officers, EMS personnel, and firefighters, and all other staff that work here. I'm at City across the hall every chance I get, interacting with Leah and Brian and Doug and Brad and all the staff across the hall. And this is a great place to work, and I'm not just saying that because I'm a new guy here. It is something I brag to my former colleagues about, and they are quite envious, and every time I interact with them, they ask me if we're hiring. So at one point I'll be able to say no, but we are hiring from time to time, as you all know. And that's all I have. That's a record time for me. This is rare. So, all right, thank you.
That is. I'm impressed. We're happy to have you, Chief, and certainly your entire staff. Alder Moore, did you have something?
Yeah, Chief, as long as, since your report was short, I'll give you an opportunity to talk again. You're probably aware that we have an outstanding business here in Winona known as the Medicine Shop that has been slammed with COVID testing. And it's kind of dicey, particularly, and it's hard to pinpoint what times of day, but basically we've got a traffic line. And I just want to make sure you guys are aware of it. And I'm wondering if maybe you could put your heads together. I know you've also been short-staffed because of the pandemic. So, but it's dicey in that cars are turning off of Winona Drive to go down and go obviously in their drive-through, and it only takes like 3 or 4 cars before then that lane, even though there's a turn lane, people aren't tending to use it. So I know I personally have turned off Winona Drive twice and been caught in that line, and there's no way to I mean, it literally is clogging up in a dangerous way. Winona Road at that intersection. So I'm just wondering if there might be some signage or something that might be done to make it a little less crazy. I mean, ideally, cars would only be coming up from the other way, although it still makes Winnequa a one-way street when it should be a two-way street. But I just know it's been really dicey, and so I just, I thought about, could they direct traffic through the Restore lot instead, or something like that, but I don't know if you have any thoughts there, but it's particularly, of course, it's particularly bad on weekends, and I'm just not seeing it letting up anytime soon. For all the right reasons, they become very popular.
Yeah, thank you, Alder Moore. I've personally been out there in my squad car to try to help sort of manage that. This is our version of a lunchtime Culver's, right, where there's like lines.
Right.
I too am happy that testing is being done, and that it creates, as you mentioned, a very challenging space. And other than doing sort of scattered sort of appointment times, I don't know how this is going to be addressed. I'll talk maybe to Dan and others to see about limiting that short block to certain traffic while they expect their peak hours. I don't want to overcommit resources that we don't have, as you referenced. So that therein lies the tricky part, and non-authorized traffic persons, so no persons who aren't firefighters or cops or other traffic agents of the city. It's unlawful for anyone to direct traffic on a public roadway. And I also don't want, not being their lawyer, I don't want them to put themselves at risk. Should heaven forbid somebody be involved in the crash. Now, what I can tell you is I'm not so concerned about sort of a rear end collision. I'm more concerned about exiting Winnequa traffic, trying to get onto Winona, turning left. That has been the challenge. So maybe I'll work with Dan to explore how we can limit some of that. But we probably will get some backup on Winona while they're during their peak hours of COVID testing. Maybe we can add some, I know we're not planning adding signage around here, just so you know, but we might explore signage about, testing only, local traffic only, or something to that regard, so that the cut-through traffic, which is how I came across this, just trying to drive down Winnequa, can choose another route.
Thank you.
Alder Thomas, did you have something to?
Now, I wondered if if Eric and the medicine shop couldn't direct, what's that side road on the other side of that goes, on the other side of the Restore, and that they could go down there and turn right around Winnequa and come up the other way. It would be less intrusive. Now, Eric and the medicine shop would have to put a map to tell people where to turn. But you know what I'm talking about doing? Mm-hmm. I mean, if you did that, that would be much easier, and it would be traffic coming around the other way. And Eric is a very good citizen, so I think if they could do something and we had a suggestion, they might be willing to listen to it.
We'll troubleshoot, for sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So you're finished, Chief? Okay. Aaliyah, did you have something to report?
Yes, I just wanted to happily inform the council that we had an accepted offer for the position of court clerk as of last Friday. So that position is now filled, and our new court clerk will be starting on February 7th and doing a little bit of training beforehand with Toya, our former clerk, who has agreed to do some training consulting for us.
We have been very lucky in that Toya has been helping out all along here. Since she left city employment, it's been great of her to come back.
It has been, absolutely.
Alder, go forth.
Yeah, just a question. I had someone reach out to me. She said she has been trying to get in touch with the court clerk for a month so she could get her driver's license back. And I told her we were in this transition period. What should I do? Where should I send her? Should I just have her call you, Leah?
She can certainly do that.
Okay.
We are still telling people to go ahead and email the court clerk. That email address is courtclerk@ci.monona.wi.us.
Okay, thank you.
Because Toya is checking email messages from her residents at night, and then trying to return phone calls or return emails, and then she's been coming in on the weekends.
Thank you, very helpful.
Anything else, Leah?
Oh, that's it.
I'm very happy to hear that. I know you've had two good ones, so that's good to hear. Alder Coor, did you have something?
I just had a question. The last meeting we talked about the extension of the COVID leave policy. Is that something that we're going to vote on, or is that something that's going to be approved and we don't have to vote on it?
Yeah,
It was approved as a
it was approved at Finance and
Finance and
Personnel Committee
Personnel.
this evening. Since it's a personnel item, it only has to be approved by the Personnel Committee. We did extend it basically the same as what it was last year. The only exception is if you remember from the prior policy, it was 2 weeks or 10 days of leave time. We've adjusted it to 5 days to match the CDC's current guidelines, and pretty much all the other requirements apply. So that loop has been closed with that. And it's retroactive to January 1.
Okay, Leah, that was it?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And it looks like Doug left. Okay, Mr. Gallo, do you have anything to?
That was the only thing I was going to comment on was the COVID policy, so we're good to go there.
All right.
That's fine.
I guess the only thing I would have is just for the public at large, in case people aren't aware, the parking underneath the current 2 is open. It's really nice parking down there, and we paid a fair amount of money for it, so please make use of it. And it's very well lit at night also. So that's 58 additional public parking spaces that are available for people coming in to the ice skating rink or to any of the businesses or whatever down at the riverfront. So that's good to see that. And I think the parking lot behind the Abbott or the Inland Way, our Yahar Lane, I guess it is open again. I think they've cleared out the construction equipment there too. So hopefully our parking problems down there should be getting a lot better.
Is there a sign up in the shop, the skate shop, telling about the public parking in the current?
I don't know, but we should. Brian, could you check with Jake about that? I know there's a parking sign hanging on the outside of the ramp, so hopefully people notice that as they come through.
Again,
I mean, it's just in the lower level. It's not the upper level, but it's the only level you can enter from Inland Way is the lower level. So it's pretty clear.
Another good newsletter article.
Right. And I submitted something about it for that, so.
Yeah, there is wayfaring signage for public parking as well as the public sign on the building. Public parking sign on the building, as the mayor just pointed out, that was all approved by the Plan Commission, so it should be fairly clear to people that that parking is available.
Yeah. And that's everything I have. We have one appointment, Dave Boyer, to the Public Works Committee, effective immediately through April 2023, and we neglected to include his application in the packet, but Brian did email that to all of you late this afternoon. So is there a motion to approve that? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Did you want to say something, Molly?
Yeah, I just, for everyone's reference, I really appreciate it. And I mean, this person has a lot of experience that I think is relevant to this committee. But I really appreciated a statement that they made saying that, if other applicants, they were appreciative of the city's commitment to diversification of committees, and that, they would be happy to step aside or stand down if another applicant of color or just a different non-white male candidate were to step up. So I just wanted to say I really appreciated that. I also wanted to let members of the public know that even if there aren't openings, we are always, soliciting applications for different committees so that we have them on hand. I believe we said they stay on file for, is it 2 years you said, Leah?
3 years.
3 years. And I just think anyone can apply anytime, and I think that's an important thing to note, is that I think there would be a lot of people on committees prepared just to stand aside to make room for new voices. So just wanted to make a note of that.
And we do receive applications throughout the year. And I consider all applications we receive when I make an appointment. So we've been trying to find someone to apply for Public Works for several months now, so. Spoken with Mr. Boyer, and I think he'll do a good job, and he's very interested. So we have a motion to approve in a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion. You know I love a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? And I would just say our next meeting is 3 weeks from tonight, so we have a little break. Was there a second? Did you second, Christine?
Yeah, I did, thank you.
Okay. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 We are adjourned. Thank you.
Good
Thanks,
night,
everyone.
all. Stay warm.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.